in Pro Tools.
Correct.
So you're kind of like sort of committing to the mix in Logic and then maybe like tweaking it a little bit.
Yeah, and I used to mix to the instrumentals, but sometimes I can get away with mixing to a 2-track with the vocals. But, that one point where the snare is just 2 dBs louder, too loud, and it's competing with the vocal. And I'm like, man, I wish I could just turn that one snare down. That's all I need. Well, you start EQing the 2-track, and that cuts down, everything else in the beat. And now you're like, man, I wish I would have had the stems. So now pretty much I usually just always bring the stems back in.
Dope. So tell me a bit about your publishing work. What exactly you're doing, who you're doing it for?
Cool. So, I got a publishing deal with Prescription under Sony. Shout out to Prescription. They've been the best team in the world. Katie Fagan moved from LA to open up the East Coast office in Nashville. And they've been in Nashville rocking for years now. I first went up there a few years ago. I've been with them for about 5 years. My time is usually split about 50-50 working with the sync side and working with artists. Actually just got my first placement with a Prescription artist, James Droll, right before the wedding, which was actually my big goal, to get a placement before the wedding.
In case we didn't mention this, Ben just got married a month ago, so wish him congratulations.
1 month. Thanks so much, man. That was super cool. It made it to the song's called This Could Be the Last Time by James Droll, an amazing artist, amazing songwriter, and it made it to Spotify's New Music Friday playlist.
Oh, amazing.
Super cool. And then the other stuff, so I'm always constantly working with Prescription artists and songwriters, but they also, because of their reach, they know so many people in Nashville and Atlanta. They're always songwriters, artists they're always connecting me with. And then, of course, a big chunk of my time is spent with the sync side of the world. So I'm constantly writing stuff for TV and film. A lot of the artists that I work with are also doing that, which is a little different than working with artists shooting for something for their project.
Sure. From what I understand, they give you they'll send you like an email with like, we want it to sound kind of like this song, and we want like very, very specific directions, and you got to turn it around really quickly.
Correct. So some of the times we'll have a specific goal. Like the last one was for a movie called Super Pets. It was a animated film that they were doing about the pets of the Justice League. The one before that was a Kevin Hart movie. So sometimes they'll have like, hey, we need a montage. Here's 3 songs that they're looking for songs in the movie. And one might be like an EDM trap song. One might be a piano ballad. And here's 3 different versions of ideas that they're looking for. Sometimes they'll have notes on the scene, like the animal's just busted out of the animal shelter and they're just realizing that they have this or that. And then sometimes a lot of the stuff that we work on for sync is just shot in the dark, starting from scratch, which can be, from what I've heard, is actually can be as easily placed or better than that. So sometimes the sync team will send us emails about new briefs they have with the top agencies, and they'll tell us what is getting placed mostly. And it could be looking for vibes along the line of female-driven urban music or piano ballads, but ballads that are not slow tempo, upbeat tempo, to specific examples with Spotify, YouTube links of like, hey, this is what, companies are, this song has been synced 40 times over the past 2 years and it's still going. So I'm constantly writing for stuff like that. And that's always fun because getting in and working with artists, they can, especially like lyricists, as far as songwriters go, they have a lot more freedom, I guess. Well, I don't know if that's the right word, but they don't have to worry about like, hey, is this what I want my sound to be when I release it as so-and-so, so-and-so? They can release it under different names, or, nobody has to know that we even did it. We come up with, alter egos, band names, producer names, artist names.
Wow.
So it's a lot of fun to experiment with that, and you get to try a lot of stuff that you might not normally have tried.
Yeah, it gets you out of your comfort zone.
Oh yeah, 100%. And then every single time I've ever done that with a song for sync, I'm able to take that and use it in my other production because I learned something, even if it's not a style or genre I want to do. I'm like, oh, I never knew how they did that. Oh, cool. Now I've got that under my tool belt.
Right. Now you figured out how they do future bass or whatever.
Yep. Yep.
Perfect. So what's it like working in Nashville versus a city such as Atlanta?
Man, so Nashville's been absolutely amazing. Atlanta, I've been here for the past 12 years. It's just Atlanta's been amazing too. It's just two different worlds essentially. Time wise, Atlanta, most sessions start, the earliest is 2 p.m. Usually they start in the evening, 10 p.m. In Nashville, it's all a 9 to 5. You know, we get going between 9 a.m. and noon. Yeah, it's just a totally different world. The studio, most of the stuff I've been doing in Atlanta, obviously, is hip hop. You know, it's definitely the hip hop capital of the world, or has been like that for a minute now. Nashville is known for the country, but the pop scene and the urban scene, hip hop and R&B, have been absolutely exploding. From what I've heard since before I've been going up there this past year, over the past few years, the pop scene's really starting to make a name for itself. And it's been great. Usually with working in Atlanta, the majority of my sessions would be me and a rapper. I would scroll through a folder of beats, and they would pick one and write to it either in the room or on the mic, and we'd record anywhere from 1 to 3 or 4 songs in a night. In Nashville, usually I'm hooked up with at least 2 writers, which I found is, especially for pop music, is very beneficial for having people bounce ideas off of each other. And we usually do usually about 1 song a day. Sometimes if we're doing sync stuff, we might try to knock out 2 or 3.
Wow. Amazing. So how do you work so fast? Do you have any templates?
Oh yeah. Tons of them. Logic, Pro Tools. I have my vocal tracking mixed templates ready. Vocal tracking templates. I like to have stuff, sounding good when the artist, something I learned from working in Atlanta. In Atlanta, you have to be fast. You have to be really fast. And even when I'm working with people who aren't necessarily concerned about stuff being fast, it helps. Definitely helps with the vibe. Mm-hmm. So even if I'm using reverbs and completely changing my vocal chains and the effects and stuff later on in the mix, I love to have it sounding good and vibed out when they walk back into the control room from the vocal booth, or we take our headphones off. I love having stuff already sounding good, because that inspires the artist to keep going, maybe write another song or add on to the hook or finish this part or something like that. So
wow, I love that.
Yeah.
It's amazing. And you're able to get a good reverb sound without too much latency, or are you using outboard gear?
Yeah, I use a lot of outboard gear. But I also have, I also rock the UAD. I'm rocking the original Apollo Twin. So running plugins through the console,
no problem.
And with the UAD console has been awesome when I don't have outboard gear. I've definitely used that over outboard gear before too, just because it's easy and I know how to use it and it sounds great. Yeah,
everyone is. I'm an RME user, but maybe I should switch over to UA. Who knows?
Yeah.
Anything else other than templates that you use to work faster or get inspired quicker?
Working in a big studio, doing it for 12 years, especially doing it every day for a big chunk of that. I've just, the whole, what is it? The 10,000 hours thing. Mm-hmm. I've kind of generally looked into that. I've done that many times over, I've lapped myself with the 10,000 hours. I don't know how many hours I've put in, but, just doing it. And I love all the, learning online about stuff, tutorials. But I've had a lot of, great people, mentors and stuff from the studio to help me. But then, just doing it. And, my workflow in Pro Tools is shortcuts, quick key shortcuts.
Yeah.
That's probably more important than anything, for me, learning shortcuts, knowing what to do, having your system set up. And then doing it over and over and over.
Amazing. What's your favorite creative tool in the studio?
My favorite creative tool. Bass is what I'm best at, but honestly, without my laptop, I wouldn't be doing any of this.
Yeah.
Over big spectrum, laptop. Favorite creative tool, Omnisphere is my favorite soft synth.
Amazing.
Bass guitar is my favorite live instrument. Valhalla Room is my favorite reverb.
Valhalla, I've heard amazing things about Valhalla. I don't have it.
It's my go-to for if I want to make something, and it's great for just using as a regular reverb for instruments, vocals. is my go-to for most of my productions. When I want like a drenched, drowned out sound, I will just throw that directly on a track. The decay, turn it up, mess with the EQ and the mix. Can't live without it.
Amazing. Is there anything you do specifically in your productions that you think gives you a trademark sound?
Wow, that's a good question. I'm thinking back on my old stuff. Because of being in Atlanta for so long, and especially where as rap and hip hop and R&B have taken over the charts, having drums knock is a very big part of my sound. The groove would be the biggest part of my sound.
Amazing.
And I know groove can mean different things to different people, but the head nod factor, the way the rhythm section, the bass and the drums. But I mean, the guitar part, the keyboards and guitars is also part of the rhythm. I taught myself how to play bass and guitar. And I used to have roommates that would make fun of me for the way I played guitar and the way my hands looked like a claw because I don't do it right. Yeah. But there's certain stuff that I've seen people say, how did you do that on guitar? And I'm like, well, I kind of taught myself. Also don't know the correct chords for certain stuff. So I'll just, start making stuff up. And I think that's helped set myself apart, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it gives you like a unique sound, basically.
Mm-hmm. And also, when I first started writing songs and making beats, I did not study anything online. This is also back before all the tutorials became huge.
Massive,
yeah, and the YouTube University. So I was self-taught as far as that goes. And also, I was still in my phase of trying to be different. I went through a phase when I was younger about not liking pop music. And then I started producing and that kind of kept into it. And I was like, well, I don't want to learn the way everybody else is doing. Fast forward to when I was really trying to start selling music and I was like, all my stuff sounds different. Somebody pointed that out to me and they're like, well, that's only going to help you in the long run. And then I learned how people actually made like, oh, how do they do this type of beat? How do they program these drums? How do they sequence these hi-hats? Then I started learning how people did it and combined that. And I think it helped sometimes give me a sound that's maybe a little bit pokes out or is a little different or whatever.
Kind of like going through the back door, like reverse learning.
Yeah, 100%. Yep.
Amazing. How do you balance your creative vision with what the artist is going for?
Like I said earlier, a producer, in my mind, as a producer, I'm essentially trying to get the artist's concept through to translate through the speakers, but I'm also an artist myself.
Yeah,
so
totally.
I might come to them with an instrumental, and luckily a lot of the artists that I've been working with love my sound, and they always say, I love your stuff, and it might be completely fleshed out, like a fully finished instrumental. I've worked with a lot of artists, a lot of producers who it's my way or the highway. I get the final say as the producer is what they say. But when it comes to once we start writing a song with somebody and I go in with them, I'm like, okay, it's now our song. It's our stuff. Also, once we get the lyrical concept down, I want to make that the best. So I've worked with writers where they're like, hey, I like this, but can we take this off? And when I was younger, somebody would say, hey, we don't need that part. I'd be like, the fuck do you mean we don't need that part? That's part of the song. You need to write around it. But now I'm like, okay, cool. What do you not like? You don't like that? Cool. I'll try all types of stuff. And I expect it to be the same way artists that I work with are great about constructive criticism, which I think is very important, where I'll say, that's super dope. I love the phrase, but there's too many words. Can we just shorten it down? I always think big picture, especially when it comes to lyrics. Like, I'm not going to go in and nitpick stuff, but I will say from an overall producer perspective, I'll say that just doesn't flow right. You know, when I listen back, it doesn't flow right. And they'll say, well, what do you not like, this lyric or this? And I'm like, no, I love everything. That's not what I'm saying. It's the flow of it.
Yeah. You want something that people can sing with or whatever.
Exactly. Yep. And I think once producers and artists start working together, also a lot of the artists I've been working with lately, I've been working with for a minute now. And obviously the more you work with somebody, the more comfortable you are with them. And, you get to a point where you get in a rhythm with people and it's like, hey, let's not do that intro. Let's just take that off. Also, that's 8 bars. We only need like a 2-bar intro. And I'm like, okay, cool. Chop it.
Once you know somebody for a long amount of time, it's easier to do constructive criticism, have less ego and
Yep.
Wow. Yep. Yeah.
But also working with new artists, I try to take that perspective. And I'm like, well, this artist right here, even though I've only worked with him or her this is my first session.